after she had gone into the school, the first thought on my mind wasn't, I hope she really does well in her class this year, or I hope she learns something amazing. Those were not the thoughts that went through my mind. I was thinking, please God, I pray that she's safe this year. It's heartbreaking to know that that's a thought process that parents have everywhere across the country. And as an educator who has been a school principal and a district administrator, I know how deeply overwhelming it can feel to consider your options in the face of potential gun violence in your school or district. Just 2 days ago, I spoke to Superintendent Wicks from Perry, Iowa, the latest district leader that is working to build back a community after the school shooting in his district on January 4th. We talked about the tragedy, but also about plans to create a safe learning environment. You know, I always say, no school lock is a match for an AR-15. And while I lift up our brave educators and district leaders, I admonish those who prefer to protect the right to carry assault weapons over the need to protect the lives of children. More broadly, we also understand that this is a time of profound challenges to the mental health of our nation's students. In fact, our Surgeon General describes youth mental health as a defining public health crisis of our time. As an educator, I can tell you that across our country, millions of students are not reaching their God-given potential because they fear for their safety or lack of sense of belonging in school. Make no mistake, you can't separate the need to accelerate our students' academic successes with the need to have safe and welcoming learning environments free from fear and free from violence. No, we need to boldly improve learning conditions and step up our focus on youth mental health. Let me tell you, no one understands that better than our Vice President. She is a true champion for our young people. She cares deeply and fights hard for the well-being of our students, something that I got to see firsthand when I joined the Vice President on her Fight for Our Freedoms college tour. I'm excited for you to hear from her, and I look forward to the discussion today. Vice President Harris, over to you.
Thank you very much, Secretary Cardona, and for all the work you've been doing. You've been traveling our country these last 3 years, not only lifting up the voices and the needs of our students, but lifting up our teachers, our administrators, and all of the folks who are here at this table as leaders today. So thank you. And to all the leaders who are here, Mayor Lyles, I thank you for welcoming us and for the work that you are doing here in Charlotte. I have traveled here from Washington, D.C. this morning because the work that you all are doing as a community of leaders is so critically important and a real example of what we can do as a country when we do truly see our children and listen to them and understand, yes, their God-given potential, and understand what we can do then to assist in them actually realizing that potential, including the duty that we each have to ensure that they are safe in every way. Yes, physically safe, that they are safe to dream, that they are safe to learn, that they are just safe to be. And so that's why we have convened today. Principal Deanan, I thank you for welcoming us to this beautiful school. I had the opportunity to meet with some of the students before I came in. We met with no cameras or press in the room because the students have, each of them who I met with, had very tragic experiences with gun violence. And I wanted to talk with them in a way I could listen without them feeling the pressure of having to perform. And their words were the words of very wise people who are much older than these young leaders are, who have thoughts and ideas and a perspective about their rights and our responsibilities as the adults in their life. And I think about what they shared with us, with the backdrop being that in the United States of America today, the number one killer of our children in America is gun violence. Not car accidents, not some form of cancer. Gun violence is the number one killer of the children of America. I think about this convening and the leadership of everyone at this table in the context of the fact that 1 in 5 Americans has a family member that was killed because of gun violence. And so those numbers on their face are extraordinarily tragic and shocking. And when we take the time to consider what those numbers mean, let's understand how many people in our country, including the children, are experiencing profound trauma. Trauma that manifests itself in so many ways that are both in terms of the emotional impact and then the symptoms that manifest themselves based on behaviors, not to mention how trauma affects individuals physiologically, which is well documented. I've been working on this issue for years, back since I was district attorney of San Francisco. And how that impacts then the ability of our children to reach their God-given potential in terms of having the ability to learn and open up their minds and the big brains they have to all that their beautiful teachers are trying to share with them. It's a serious issue that we are discussing right now, and we can do something about it. As an administration, President Biden and I and the leaders of the President's cabinet and so many others have been advocating for what we must do to have reasonable gun safety laws in America. We have proudly passed some of the first reasonable gun safety laws in 30 years. But there's more we need to do. When I was speaking with these young leaders before I walked in here, they were talking about, hey, shouldn't we be looking at people's backgrounds before they can buy a gun? Yes, young leaders, I said to them, you are absolutely right. Oh, that they were members of Congress. Because that's reasonable. That you might want to know before someone could buy a lethal weapon if they had been proven by a court to be a danger to themselves or others. You just might want to know. We talked about the need to create safe places for our children so that they can have the room to talk about their feelings. Some of the work that's happening, Madam Principal, here and in this school district and with the leaders here, the young people were talking to me about having the space to, and I wrote some notes, to talk about social and emotional lessons. So the young leaders told me about how with their teachers, they find solace and support when they come to the classroom in the morning and the teacher asks them, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 to 10, how are you feeling today? Sometimes the teacher, they shared with me, will put up different emojis and ask the children to point to the emoji that best describes how they're feeling that day. So that they, in the school, in the classroom with their teacher, can have a safe place to talk about how they're feeling, which we know has everything to do with how they are experiencing life, how they will interact with others, much less how they will be able to learn. And so today we are convening to talk about all of these issues and to talk about the trauma that is undeniable, how it manifests itself in children and young people who you may find want to sleep all day because they just don't want to get out of bed or deal with the realities of the hard realities of the violence and the pain they feel if they have personally witnessed or have a family member who has been killed or harmed by gun violence. We've talked about trauma and how it results in young people. We talked about it with the people who go to war. PTSD, how they relive what is happening in a way that may cause them to act out. but undiagnosed and therefore untreated, what that might mean in terms of marginalizing these children, because they just have not had the mental health counseling and attention that they need to heal and to more productively express their feelings. So we're here today to talk about many things, including the need for smart gun safety laws, reasonable gun safety laws, but the trauma and what we must do then to assist in the diagnosis and treatment of that trauma. And for all of those reasons, I am proud to be here at this very school to make an announcement, which is that we are announcing $285 million as part of our administration's initiative to hire and train mental health counselors in schools. In North Carolina, $12 million of those dollars will be received, Mayor, which will include the ability and resources to hire 332 new counselors, and nationally will help to hire over 14,000 mental health counselors for our schools who can do the kind of work which is to lead in group counseling sessions, one-on-one therapy, and student mediation, social and emotional lessons every day, and just provide a place where those who are trained to do this work can allow the students and the children to check in and to heal. So with all of that again, and our announcement previously of over $6 million for students at schools in communities with high rates of gun violence, we are putting the resources where they are needed. More resources are needed, no doubt. But let's pay attention to this issue because we can actually do something about it. And we have the opportunity then to address what we know will otherwise be generational and intergenerational trauma. Trauma is something that is not genetically inherited, but it is inherited in terms of, if untreated, if there's no intervention, what continues to be trauma building up in communities. And so again, I thank everyone here for your courage, for your leadership, and with that, I'm going to turn it back to Secretary Cardona to mediate and moderate our discussion.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice President. And, you know, a lot to ponder there, a lot of facts, statistics, but I have to say, I want to acknowledge also the announcement of $285 million for more mental health support for our students. Words and action, so thank you for that. And at this point, I'd like to ask Mayor Vi Lyles for some remarks. Mayor?
Thank you very much.
No, they're still here. I
Thank you.
believe we have, the meeting is going to stay for a series of remarks, and then I'll dismiss them. Thank you. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Secretary Cardona, and thank you, Vice President Harris, for making gun violence a priority for you and for the Biden administration, what you're doing. And I want to especially thank you for emphasizing the work that our state is doing to combat gun violence and invest in mental health resources. $285 million, if some part of that comes to our community, we will be very grateful and we will put it to good use. Your support, along with all of the people in this room who represent this great city, this great state, they are going to make the difference, and it's critical that we have the participation that we have around the table, because it's going to take all of us. Every level of government is going to be needed to address this pandemic that we have right now of gun violence and making our community members, residents, feel safe. We're currently facing a very hard truth that our youth are increasingly caught in the cycle of crime, and we must do more to ensure our youth have the opportunity as well as hope that that's not always going to be who they are or how they are identified. As a mom who raised 2 teenagers, I know that being a teenager comes with its own set of challenges, and facing violence as a teen in this time and place is a whole new layer of complexity. Let me tell you a brief story about a 17-year-old young man who was tragically shot and suffered a serious spinal cord injury that changed his life. While he was on the path to recovery, he met with our healthcare system's violence intervention team because he wanted to heal and break the cycle of violence that he had. The team in the hospital listened to him, they earned his trust, and he began to share his fear of leaving the hospital and going back to the streets. Together, with a circle of people who cared deeply about him, they built a safe place outside of his home, igniting a sense of hope that he would be able to have a brighter future. That's what the people in this room that I'm so proud of in this community, that's what you do every day to support programs like this, and I am proud and grateful to you. But I also say it's important for us to actually recognize the work that's being done, and I want to say thank you, President Biden, thank you, Vice President Harris, because your administration is caring about what happens on our streets, in our communities, and especially for our youth. The money that you invest with us to hire and train school mental health counselors will make a genuine difference in what the future can be. So I, along with all of the members of the elected officials across the state, all of the people in this room that give their time and dedication to this effort, I know, working together, we can make a better future for our communities and our young people especially. So thank you very much for having this difficult conversation, but necessary conversation today.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for the reminder that it does take a village. Thank you. And speaking of the village, I was able to meet the superintendent and the board president also, as well as the principal. And at this time, I'd like to introduce and welcome Eastway Middle School Counselor Cortesia Riddick for some remarks. Cortesia?
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Cortesia Riddick, and I am one of the school social workers here at Eastway Middle School. And I want to say thank you, Madam Vice President Harris and the Biden-Harris administration, for allowing me to share with you my insight regarding the impact of gun violence with students throughout the Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools community. This issue is near and dear to my heart, as I've unfortunately experienced gun violence in my own family. Out of 4 family members who were gun violence victims, 3 are thankfully still alive. We are truly grateful that your administration will provide additional school counselors. We are witnessing an alarming rate of students presenting with various mental health issues, including high rates of depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideations. Throughout my tenure with CMS, I've witnessed or read about tragic events, including losing the parent of a former student to gun violence. We are heavily understaffed within the Student Services Department, which includes school counselors, school social workers, and school psychologists. Because of this, it's difficult to meet the increased demand for the support of students impacted by trauma. We need more mental health professionals to provide safe and healthy outlets for students to discuss their thoughts, feelings, and emotions. This will give our youth an opportunity to acquire conflict resolution and coping skills, which are severely lacking with many of our children and teens. Many of our youth do not seem to connect death by gun violence and permanency. They are not processing the long-term implication of taking someone else's life. Instead of solving math equations or learning about great historical figures, our students are remembering the relatives and friends they've lost to gun violence. They cry for those people. They are afraid in their own neighborhoods. They are even afraid in our schools. I've even had a student here ask me, "So, Ms. Riddick, if someone comes into the school with a gun, are we really going to be okay? We do these drills, but will a gunman find us?" This is a valid concern, and students shouldn't have to think twice about their safety in the one place that many look to as a safe haven, and that's our schools. Thank you.